Hello everyone, Brock from Brock and Sindri back again for another Fable Thursday. How are you this week? I hope you're well. Let's jump straight into this Fable lore video. We are talking about Captain Ben Finn, who is a soldier in the Swift Brigade of the Albion Royal Army under the command of Major Swift, and also an ally to the hero of Brightwall in Fable 3. So he has a very strong connection with Major Swift, who basically acts like a father figure to Ben. And as a member of the Old Guard, due to his connections to Major Swift, he is marked as a traitor by King Logan. Benjamin Finn was born in the small hamlet referred to as Gunk. Sounds lovely. Ben being the youngest of 4 children. Throughout most of his life, Ben has never truly felt at home anywhere. He was raised by his shopkeeper parents, who often struggled to buy shoes for Ben and his brothers and put food on their table. Ben and his brothers then had to find other sources of sustenance, money, or entertainment. And despite his small hands, Ben was never as good as his brothers in the boy's main source of income, which was pickpocketing. Ben believes that this ineptitude was due in part to the fact that he recognized the immorality of pickpocketing, even at the age of 8. Instead, Ben earned money as a street performer, standing in the town square telling jokes and falling over repeatedly. Even though his jokes were crude, he believed the work to be honest, or at least it would have been had his brothers not taken the opportunity to rob the distracted villagers blind. Because of his help in getting them their ill-gotten gains, on his 11th birthday, his brothers bought him a beautiful pellet gun, which he saw as the greatest gift he had ever received. It was with that pellet gun that Ben discovered his second talent, a rather surprising accuracy with firearms. It was not long after he discovered this fact that his brothers put his talent to good use. His brothers would set up a fair booth in which they challenged all comers to pit their target practice skills against Ben's. After fleecing all of the locals, they soon had to rely on traders, passers-by, and the occasional neighbouring villagers, out of which more often than not they would have been run out by the authorities. While his accomplices spent or gambled most of their earnings, Ben saved every gold coin he could so that he could one day fulfill his burning desire to explore Albion and become a great adventurer like the ones he read about in 2-penny pamphlets and third-hand storybooks. More than anything, he wanted to meet heroes, even though he knew that their heyday had long since passed and that the aging ruler of the kingdom was the last. It was the death of this hero when he was 15 that marks the beginning of a series of tragedies that were to befall his own family. His oldest brother, Jason, was killed in a duel with an irate farmer that so happened to be the husband of Jason's latest sexual conquest. They dueled with pitchforks, and since Jason had never done an honest day's work in his life, he made the fatal mistake of holding his pitchfork the wrong way. Shortly after Jason died, Ben's second oldest brother, William, was arrested for trying to run a con game on the wrong person, which was a passing plainclothes town guard. William was instead taken to Bowerstone and had never been heard of again. Ben's third brother, Quentin, accumulated enough gambling debts to have a price put on his head. Ben remembers Quentin's death most clearly since he was unfortunate enough to even witness it. When the assassins and bounty hunters came in to collect, Ben did what he could to protect Quentin, but no matter how accurate Ben's shots were from his rifle, it didn't change the fact that he was shooting peas instead of bullets, as he had never been able to afford a real rifle. It was no surprise to him then when his mother died next, grief-stricken by the loss of her 3 sons. Ben's mother left his father a drunken widower, though drunk only when he could afford it, poverty making his attempts to drown his sorrows even harder. And despite this, Ben did what he could to help out in his father's shop, employing all of his wit and charm to become a highly persuasive salesman. It was obvious that there wasn't much of a market for novelty toothbrushes in such a small village, especially one that made such an effort to avoid any form of oral hygiene. Soon enough, Ben's father passed away, far more sober than he probably would have liked to. It was then that Ben resolved to leave Gunk for good and seek his fortune and adventures in the kingdom of Albion. With what little gold he had saved in his youth now gone, having to spend it all on the quick succession of funerals and having to pay off his brother's gambling and business debts, he left his so-called home as penniless as he had entered it 17 years prior. Unable to pursue his dreams as an explorer, he found himself gravitating towards the main cities and doing a variety of jobs. He stacked books at the Brightwall Library, absorbing as much knowledge as he could about the world from them. Served drinks at the Cow and Corset in Bowerstone. After he established that his comedy routine would bring him nowhere among the more sophisticated urban crowd, and eventually managed to put his shooting skills to work as he became a bodyguard who protected traders as they travelled from town to town. I just want to say at this point that Cow and Corset is an excellent name for an inn. It was at this point that Ben finally had a real rifle in its possession, and using it against bandits and hobs and other enemies the trading caravans attracted felt as natural as breathing to him. The wages he earned were so superior to those he previously earned that he soon had enough gold to make his dream come true. After obtaining the supplies he would need, Ben set out to experience the adventures he'd read about since he was young, exploring every corner of Albion. During the next few years, Ben hunted hidden treasures and set out on dangerous quests in the same manner as the heroes of legend. In a short time, he exhausted almost every legitimate means by which any young man could experience life at its fullest. This exhaustion, coupled with the fact that he never could quite shake off his involvement, intentional or otherwise, with criminal activity, led him to run with a band of smugglers that were operating out of the Bowerstone port. After a few weeks, as was ultimately inevitable, Ben ended up in Bloodstone, where he found an until then hidden appetite for the pleasures that only the lowest of societies could provide. Ben is now embarrassed to recall the days he'd spent drinking, gambling, and indulging in other unsavory pastimes, but is embarrassed further to recall the succession of women that he fell in love with, describing them as strong-minded and even stronger thighed. That's thighed, as in upper leg. The only excuse Ben has for his behaviour is that it was in his blood, and while he had not followed his brother's examples while they lived, he celebrated their memories by following them at that point in time. One balmy night, Ben boarded a motley crewed frigate whilst heavily intoxicated. Hardly pleased by the company and the profession that he was forced to embrace, he looked forward to the chance to see the world that was beyond Albion, although the plundering nature of the voyage spoiled any tourism he would have otherwise enjoyed in the foreign lands that they visited. Ben's impressions of such exotic locations were inextricably tied in with the images of the locals waving sharp implements in a threatening manner as the ship he was on set sail for the horizon. The next time that they docked in Bowerstone with the intention of selling their wares into the black market, Ben took the chance to leave that particular chapter of his life behind him, with very few regrets, but quite a few cuts, bruises, and monkey bites. It was there that he met a man who was to change his life for the better and offer him a career that would give him what he longed for the most, a sense of belonging, a new family, and a lawfully gained wage. It was then that Ben was about to join the Albion Royal Army. Sometime during his service in the army, Ben's fellow officers and enlisted men encouraged him to write a book about his life after hearing him tell stories about his years before he enlisted. In Fable 3, Ben makes his first appearance in Morningwood during the quest The Hollow Legion at the Morningwood Fort. He, along with Jamie, instructs the prince or princess on how to operate the fort's mortar. When the Hollow Men enter the fort, Ben fights alongside the prince/princess, Walter, Major Swift, and the remaining soldiers that are at the fort. When the Hollow Men are defeated and Major Swift asks the hero to restore honor to the uniform, Ben adds how he wishes for a pay raise. Ben is later seen before the Masquerade quest telling Paige how he killed 3 Hollow Men with 1 shot. She tells him that she doesn't care, to which he tries to get Walter and the hero to tell her how that really happened. When she tells the hero of her plan to infiltrate Reaver's party, Ben states how he wishes to go with them. Paige refuses to let him come along, saying she didn't trust soldiers and wasn't going to start with him, and orders everyone to leave so that she might change. Ben then offered to stay behind to make sure that no one would spy on her as she was getting changed, but he's once again told to leave. Disappointed, he states how their relationship wasn't going to work out, and if he had known he couldn't join, he'd have gone with Major Swift to the castle. Paige remarks how she doesn't like soldiers in the hideout, the only exceptions being Walter and Major Swift, who had just left. Turns out that staying behind had saved his life. Ben meets up with the hero at Bowerstone Castle after it's announced that Logan was giving out an important speech. Ben is horrified to find out that Logan found out that Major Swift was aiding the revolution. When Logan executes Swift, Ben is furious, but is able to gather himself together to inform the others of what had happened to Major Swift. Back at the hideout, Paige and Walter tried to comfort him, and Walter told him that he'd died a noble death. Ben disagrees though, saying that he was treated like an animal before he was killed, but Walter reminds him that Major Swift didn't give any information away and managed to send them a message of where to go next. Ben goes with the hero to a warehouse, telling the hero that Swift taught him almost everything he knew about being a soldier. Upon gaining entry, Ben tells the hero to show them what traitors are capable of, Once they reach the docks, Ben is worried when he sees that Paige isn't with Walter. After Walter tells him that she had to stay behind, they steal a boat and leave for Aurora. He, along with the hero of Brightwall and Sir Walter, are shipwrecked in Aurora. Although separated from Walter and the hero, fortunately he is found by Kaelin and taken to the city of Aurora. At first he believes the hero and Walter to be dead, but after realizing that he was being stupid, he used his wit and charm to convince Kaelin to send a search party to look for the player and Sir Walter. After the hero gets overwhelmed by the crawler's darkness, he later finds the player along with the nearly dead Sir Walter. The player awakes in the desert to Ben hovering just inside their vision. He reassuringly pats the player's hand, telling them that he'll find Walter. Kaelin then takes the hero to the city of Aurora. After both recover, Ben joins them on the way to the assault on Bowerstone Castle. After the revolution, when Logan is put on trial, Ben, now the Major's successor, wishes for him to be executed for the way Swift was murdered. And after the final battle against the crawler, he joins Walter's funeral service, employing his typical chatty sense of humour in honouring Walter. After he leaves, saying that the life of being a general wasn't for him and that he will return to adventuring or help Paige with Bowerstone. In Fable, Edge of the World, his successor was revealed to be the loyal soldier Jack Timmins. Now, as a brief warning, the following part is taken from Fable Blood Ties, which is not officially recognised as canon anyway. Shortly after the successful defence of Albion against the crawler, Ben Finn decides to leave Bowerstone behind and go adventuring again, determined to keep the resolution he made at Walter Beck's funeral, and sick of his newfound celebrity. After unsuccessfully attempting to convince Paige to join him, Ben sets off for Morningwood. He travels the roads of Morningwood lost in thought when he is suddenly warned by a mysterious voice of the two creeping hobs that are preparing to ambush him. Dispatching them with ease, Ben expresses his gratitude to his mysterious benefactor, only to learn that it was a gnome that saved his life. Tired of the never-ending barrage of insults typical from gnomes, he leaves the gnome in the dirt and sets off once again, only to learn that the gnome continues to follow at his heels, insulting him wherever he goes. The gnome seemingly disappears, however, after Ben takes a midday nap beneath a tree. Relieved, he travels through the woods. When venturing into the wilds of Morningwood, Ben finds his old friend Baron, a former member of the Swift Brigade, along with several other former comrades of Ben's days in the military. Swapping heroic tales of the late Major Swift, talk eventually turns to the large walled town of Blackholm, currently under siege by the warlord named Drugan. When the former soldier Trevor explains that Blackholm doesn't have the money to hire mercenaries like themselves, a voice calls the group out for their cowardice in an unerring imitation of Ben's own voice. Ben quickly clambers onto the back of the nearby brown stallion named Clash, retrieves the troublesome gnome and gallops off in a hasty retreat, leaving his former comrades behind. Arriving in Blackholm, Ben quickly approaches the militia leader, Old Henry, who gets Ben into position right before Drugan's forces pour out from the nearby woods. However, the unlucky mercenaries were not expecting the exceptional marksmanship skills of Ben, who quickly picks off a vast majority of them from the walls. Rushing to save the wounded militia member named Russell, Ben returns to help in the ongoing battle, dishing out heavy losses to the enemy and forcing them to retreat. Old Henry expresses his undying gratitude, revealing that Russell was his son, and invites the revolutionary hero a chance to stay in Blackholm and train the men. Ben agrees. One night, as Ben and Old Henry keep watch on the ramparts, Old Henry is suddenly struck in the head by an arrow, which kills him instantly. Then, hordes of grey-skinned, yellow-eyed, hunched-over creatures called half-breeds charge the walled town, successfully breaching the town gate. Ben charges the horde, challenging their leader before he spies a signet ring on the creature's finger, a signet ring of the Finn family. Recognizing the creature as his long-lost brother William, the half-breed leader calls out for a retreat. Ben, intrigued and curious, gives chase throughout the night, arriving at a sprawling mansion in Millfields. Infiltrating the mansion, Ben eavesdrops on a conversation between Drugan and the owner of the house, the ex-pirate turned business mogul, Reaver, in which he learns that Drugan is paying Reaver to use the half-breeds. Infiltrating the manor further, Ben finds his brother being tortured by the alchemist named Barrow, who he beats to near death before rescuing William. However, they are soon caught by Reaver's guards and dragged to Reaver himself, who explains that Barrow is their only hope for a cure, and that is the only one who controls their animal instincts. Through a long negotiation, Reaver agrees to let Ben and William go if Ben assassinates Paige, who has proven meddlesome time and time again during the Monarch's rulings in the previous year. Ben agrees. Upon reaching Bowerstone, Ben extracts Paige from the Cock in the Crown pub, where she was busy fighting several thugs. Convincing Paige to accompany him on behalf of the people of Blackholm, Ben finds that he cannot assassinate Paige after she seemingly goes to sleep. It is revealed, however, that Paige expected the double cross, forcing Ben to explain the events of the past few days. Before they can come to a conclusion, the group is overwhelmed by half-breeds who capture Paige and drag her back to Reaver's manor. Giving chase, Reaver presents Ben a choice: let Paige get torn apart in his arena and be set free, or defend Paige and die with her. However, the half-breed executioners never arrive, as the gnome destroyed the crystal that allowed Reaver to control the monsters. Completely unfazed, Reaver admits that come daylight, the Horde will revert to their animal natures, starting by attacking Blackholm. Ben rushes to save the town, setting off with Paige and the gnome on the stallion clash. Upon arriving in Blackholm, Ben discovers that Drugan has occupied the city under the rule of Captain Thorpe with the help of Baron and the other former Swift Brigade members, but successfully convinces them to join in the defense of the town. During the battle, William seizes a bandolier of grenades, intending to sacrifice himself to destroy the half-breeds by summoning them to him before pulling the pin in an attempt to die as a man rather than live as a beast. Unfortunately, the rising sun causes William to lose the last vestiges of his humanity, forcing Ben to shoot the grenade and kill his brother, which stops the half-breeds and saves Blackholm. 1 week later, a triumphant warlord Drugan rides into the occupied town, only to be arrested by Captain Thorpe and Russell, who has now become the town mayor. Russell entreats Ben to stay, but Ben decides to follow Paige back to Bowerstone. And that's the story of Fable Blood Ties. He appears also in one more book, with a bit of a shorter appearance, and this is from Fable Edge of the World, another canon warning. Nearly 10 years after the successful defense of Albion against the forces of the Darkness, Ben Finn is back at Bowerstone Castle, nervously preparing himself for his duty as best man to his friend, the hero of Brightwall, for his wedding to Layla. The hero admits that he is glad that Ben Finn could serve in his capacity, but Ben laments that he is simply fulfilling a duty that should have been attended to by Walter Beck. Shortly after the wedding, the ceremony is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Shan, an envoy from Samarkand, who has come to Albion to ask for aid against the re-emerging forces of the Darkness. Gravely concerned, the hero sets off to lead a military expedition against the Darkness and the usurper known only as the Empress, accompanied once again by Ben Finn. Forced away from landing in the port town of Fairwinds by the local ships crewed by Hollowmen, the army makes it all the way through the Great Trade Road to the capital city of Zahadar, recruiting the hero of Bowerstone's old ally Garth along the way. Then Finn joins in the attack on Zahadar, a committed full frontal assault led by Garth to distract the Empress and her troops, while the hero king snuck around the back and captured her. On the verge of victory, however, the sudden appearance of the Darkness forces the Albion Royal Army, including Ben, to retreat. A distraught and infuriated Ben wishes to go back for his friend and king, but Garth cautions against rash action, reminding the group that they will need a plan. Ben, in addition to Percival and Kaelin, sadly agree. And that's the end of canonicity warning. Ben Finn is essentially an adventurous individual, describing himself as a vagabond by trade in Fable Blood Ties. Though Ben Finn often finds himself in sticky situations, more often than not on the wrong side of the law, Ben Finn possesses a good nature, trying to do right by the people, even if that was not necessarily doing right by the law. This mentality is what drove him to abandon his adventure-seeking lifestyle and join the Albion Royal Army in the first place. Between his sense of loyalty and his camaraderie, Ben makes for a fine companion both on and off the battlefield. Ben is infamous for his sense of humour, often finding time to make some kind of acerbic comment or throw out a witty comeback to his friends, regardless of their stature or status, joking to Walter Beck and even the hero of Brightwall, despite their obvious superiority in rank. Ben also regularly berates his foes in the heat of battle, and even during the siege of Morningwood Fort or amidst the revolutionary battle in Bowerstone. The only time that this is ever dialed back is during the battle against the Darkness. Accompanying his sense of humour, his adventurous streak, and his self-perceived dashing is a keen and regular interest in women. He mostly jokes with and teases women, especially Paige, and in his own memoirs, Ben admits to a certain amount of shame when he recalls the succession of strong-willed, strong-thighed women that he fell in love with over the course of his career as an adventurer and an occasional smuggler even naming his rifle Vanessa after the first woman that he'd slept with. Ben is evidently considered an attractive sort by many throughout Albion, in both the novels and his hero doll description elaborating upon his successes with women. Despite his normal good nature, occasionally Ben does display a much darker streak, normally after his family or friends are threatened with or hurt. For example, when Major Swift was executed, Ben added his voice to those who called for Logan's own execution upon winning the Revolutionary Battle. In Fable Blood Ties, this is further elaborated upon, in which Ben abandons his cause of protecting Blackholm to pursue his brother with a single-minded fervour. So let's get on to a little bit of trivia. He's voiced by the very famous now actor Simon Pegg. Ben Finn's sword model looks exactly like the Wreckager, the legendary cutlass from Fable 2. His rifle model is that of a steel flintlock rifle, and he also has what appears to be a steel flintlock pistol holstered in his left side, but is never seen using it. Simon Pegg described him as a man who wants to do the right thing but is constantly sucked back into criminality. He's very skilled in ranged combat and almost exclusively uses his gun during fights. As a major NPC, he actually cannot be romanced in any way at all. A portrait furniture piece of Ben Finn can be found in a chest in the Rebel headquarters in the sewers. It can also be won from the Morningwood Fort Mortar minigame if you score higher than 2,000 points after getting the Legendary Weapon Award. On his wanted poster, he is labelled as a coward and a traitor and is wanted for treason. Ben becomes a captain in the Albion Royal Army by the time you've met him, and he also has a story about hitting 3 hollow men with one shot. This is likely a reference to the Fable 2 achievement, the Sharpshooter, where the hero must shoot 3 enemies with a single shot. Ben and Major Swift are the only characters seen equipped with 2 ranged weapons. Despite being a captain, Ben actually seems to be a poor tactician, and this can be observed twice, when both he and the hero attempt to gain entry into a guarded warehouse, and when the leaders of the rebellion are formulating their plan to attack Battlestone Castle. It can be argued that this may not be the case. The former, he didn't have a plan in the first place, and may have merely wanted to get into a fight to avenge Major Swift, and the latter he claims to have only suggested his plan just to annoy Paige. According to Walter, Ben is a strong swimmer. In his book, he mentions that he instantly had a talent at firearms, even as a child. This may indicate heroic blood, specifically in the hero discipline of skill. There is sometimes a glitch in Morningwood Fort where Ben's hands appear to be holding a rifle, but the rifle is strapped on his back. During the final battle, Ben can be seen in one of the houses after defeating the first Dark Guardian. He's seen and waving at the hero through the window. During the Morningwood Fort attack, he may yell, "Take that, you undead zombie." This is one of the many references in-game scholars' arguments that Hollow Men aren't zombies. Due to the number of women he has slept with, Ben believes there may or may not be a bunch of little Finns running about. He is one of the 3 heroes in Fable Heroes that uses a pistol, and in the novel Blood Ties, it is revealed Ben named his rifle Vanessa. He had named it after the prostitute that took his virginity. That's all the trivia we had. 2 things. First of all, I'm surprised that they didn't do more references given the Hollow Men and Simon Pegg's history with things like movies like Shaun of the Dead and The World's End, which I know came out a lot afterwards, but I'm surprised they didn't do some references to that. And also, this is quite a long video. Fable doesn't tend to have a lot of established lore, and definitely the 2 sort of canon/non-canon books added to his lore distinctly. He's definitely a pretty big character in Fable 3, which was probably, commercially at least, one of the more successful Fable games. What do you think about his character? I always thought he was quite generic, but actually playing through the game now, finally for maybe the second time since the original playthrough, I've kind of he's grown on me a lot. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and guys, I've been Brock from Brock and Sindri. I really look forward to seeing you next week in another Fable Thursday.